YHWH, what is the prophetic message for this day? The lead verse drawn before us is Numbers chapter 34, verse 17. YHWH spoke to Moses, saying, "These are the names of the men that will divide the covenant inheritance land to you, Eleazar, the priest, and Joshua, the son of Nun." The surface text opens with YHWH speaking and naming for a concrete task of dividing the covenant inheritance land. The named ones are Eleazar the priest and Joshua the son of Nun. This frames the entire message as one of identity, priesthood, and covenant inheritance allotment. This day, YHWH is speaking and naming the appointed ones for the work of dividing the covenant inheritance land. It is priesthood joined with Joshua appointed leadership for the allotment of inheritance. We see this same pairing again when those seeking priestly inheritance come before Eleazar the priest and before Joshua the son of Nun, as recorded in Joshua chapter 17, verse 4. The priesthood itself is set apart as in Exodus chapter 28, verse 1, where Aaron your brother and his sons are brought from among the children of Israel, so that they may become the priesthood, even Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. This day also requires restoration after covenant breach. The prophetic roll that was burned must be taken again, and all the former words written in it, as commanded in Jeremiah chapter 36, verses 27 and 28. The vessels cast away in covenant transgression have been fixed and consecrated and now stand before the altar of YHWH, as we read in 2 Chronicles chapter 29, verse 19. Even the fire holders from those who violated covenant at the expense of their own lives are to be fashioned into beaten-out plates as an overlay of the altar, because they are consecrated and will be a remembrance for the children of Israel, according to Numbers chapter 16, verse 38. They will come from the cities of Judah and from the places around Jerusalem and from the covenant inheritance land of Benjamin, and from the plain and from the mountains and from the south, bringing whole burnt offerings and consecrated sacrifices and meat offerings and priestly incense and sacrifices of praise to the temple of YHWH, as declared in Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 26. In that day you will know that I am YHWH, your Elohim, living in Zion, my holy mountain. Then will Jerusalem be sacred, and there will no foreigners pass through her anymore, as spoken in Joel chapter 3, verse 17. They sang together by chorus in praising and giving thanks to YHWH, because he is good, for his kindness endures for the ages toward Israel, from Ezra chapter 3, verse 11. Even the barren are called to sing and cry aloud, because more are the children of the desolate than the children of the married woman, declares YHWH in Isaiah chapter 54, verse 1. The Levites are appointed to minister before the ark of YHWH and to record and to thank and praise YHWH, Elohim of Israel, as in 1 Chronicles chapter 16, verse 4. And for the altar of priestly incense, there is refined gold by weight, and gold for the pattern of the chariot of the cherubim that spread out their wings and covered the ark of the covenant of YHWH, from 1 Chronicles chapter 28, verse 18. David sat between the two gates, and the watchman went up to the roof over the gate to the wall, and lifted up his eyes, and observed a man running alone, as told in 2 Samuel chapter 18, verse 24. The heart is to turn even now to YHWH with all the heart, and with fasting, and with weeping, and with mourning, according to Joel chapter 2, verse 12. David therefore requested of Elohim for the child, and David fasted, and went in, and lay all night upon the ground, from 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 16. Together we are to magnify YHWH with one another, and let us exalt his name together, from Psalms chapter 34, verse 3. For those who are covenant faithful, and wise books will be given to become a cause of joy and uprightness and much wisdom, as in Enoch chapter 104, verse 12. There is the fountain of covenant faithfulness, which was inexhaustible, and around it many fountains of wisdom, and all the thirsty drank of them, and were filled with wisdom, and their dwellings were with the covenant faithful, and consecrated, and elect, from Enoch chapter 48, verse 1. Names are written in the cosmos, and there is rejoicing not in spirits being subject, but because names are written, as in Luke chapter 10, verse 20. To do justice and judgment is more acceptable to YHWH than consecrated sacrifice, as declared in Proverbs chapter 21, verse 3. Yet the message carries a solemn warning for those who walk in rebellion. There are those who are rebellious against YHWH from the day that he knew them, as in Deuteronomy chapter 9, verse 24. People will be lovers of their own selves, money, loving boasters, haughty, slanderous, disobedient, to parents, unthankful, unholy, unsociable, implacable, false accusers, intemperate, fierce, opposed to goodness, traitors, reckless, high-minded, loving pleasure, more than loving Elohim, according to 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 2 through 4. For those who worship not the covenant-faithful law, and who deny the righteous judgment, and who take his name in vain, that day of power and punishment and judgment is prepared, as declared in Enoch chapter 60, verse 7. To them the word is, you have no peace, from Enoch chapter 16, verse 5. The mathematics of this guided draw confirm the selection, with a probability of yes equaling 99.9% and a probability of no equaling 0.1%. It stands as a strong anomaly where all gates pass. The discovery level convergence upon the triad of identity, inheritance, and priesthood reaches 5.85 sigma. The guided draw E-value and the triple convergence standard together with extreme anomaly across the channel certify that this cluster was chosen with transcendent clarity. The polarity is affirmative, and the multi-channel convergence crosses the threshold at 97%. Therefore, brothers and sisters, the prophetic message for this day is this. YHWH is speaking and naming the appointed ones, Eleazar, the priest, and Joshua the son of Nun, to divide the covenant inheritance land under the established pattern of priestly consecration and Joshua leadership. He calls for the restoration of the burned prophetic word in full, and the fixing and consecration of vessels cast away in transgression, even turning instruments of violation into altar remembrance. He summons the gathering from every quarter of the inheritance land with whole burnt offerings, consecrated sacrifices, meat offerings, priestly incense, and sacrifices of praise to the temple. He directs the watchmen to lift up their eyes and the heart to turn now with fasting, weeping, and mourning. For the covenant faithful, he provides inexhaustible fountains of covenant faithfulness and wisdom books that bring joy, uprightness, and much wisdom dwellings with the consecrated and elect and names written in the cosmos. Yet for the rebellious who love self and pleasure more than Elohim, who deny righteous judgment and take his name in vain, there is prepared a day of judgment, and the solemn word, you have no peace. The inheritance is being divided this day under the priest and Joshua. This is the word that YHWH brings to us now through these scriptures, confirmed by the strong anomaly of the guided draw. The verses drawn in this Shield 17.12 session were Numbers chapter 34, verse 17, Matthew chapter 16, verse 10, 1 Samuel chapter 23, verse 29, Psalms chapter 34, verse 3, Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 26, 2 Samuel chapter 18, verse 24. This concludes today's interpretation under the Shield Protocol.